now?
I don't see that just because of kind of what he's done through the past, now it's a year with the Blue Jays. You've seen what, the Jays have done with him. You've basically never seen him gotten angry. He's always been ideally they're not in a World Series or a deep playoff run, but I think he's changed, but I don't know. I don't think that would be a factor because if he goes out there and pitches damn good, I don't think people are going to complain too much. Now, Giles was, I'm not going to beat around the bush, he was an idiot in Houston with the whole altercation with AJ Hinch and punching himself in the face. Those are not very smart moves. But I think all that goes to the side when you're one of the dominant players in the game. You look at Roberto Osuna. And all these great players that do stupid things, and yet people keep giving them second chances, and they continue to dominate. So, I don't know. I don't think it's going to affect his trade value or if teams are going to shy away from him or not. I personally don't think it's going to be a factor.
Yeah, and with the only time you ever seen him got angry was in spring training against David Paulino, and that was because David Paulino didn't want to do this one workout. So that shows his leadership and how competitive he is, and I feel like teams will be eager to trade for a player like Ken Giles, who's a top closer and who is a guy who has a nice career. Aside from the year in Houston, he's been a solid reliever in the market. So for the Blue Jays, I think if they want to package Stroh and Giles together to get one big package, they could do that. But personally, I would want them to trade Giles to someone who's specifically looking for a closer and then trade Stroman specifically for a team that needs a top-tier starter.
I don't know if you guys agree with this in the sense, can we not trade Stroman to the Yankees? Because I know the prospect. I'm tired of seeing XJs on that team. With seeing Gio Urshela and Tulowitzki and now Edwin, J-Happ, and if Marcus Stroman goes there too, I'm just going to lose it. Because we see them so damn often. I don't know, that's just my opinion when it comes to that. It's just a Jays fan saying that, I guess, but if the return is through the roof, then yes, please. But
I'll tell you what, though, the problem with the Yankees is, every time they seem to make these trades, the prospects that they give up never end up being anything. So it's does Brian Cashman know something that we don't?
I don't know. Billy McKinney and Brandon Drury quite haven't panned out for the Blue Jays quite yet. So I do agree with you in that sense. I don't know. Does Brian Cashman? I don't know. That's an interesting one. I'll have to keep an eye on that and see what other moves they make. I want to see the guys that they traded in the Stanton trade. I want to see how those guys pan out.
Yeah, and even Dustin Fowler and Jorge Mateo, who I believe were in the Oakland trade, they were supposed to be really top prospects at one point. You haven't even heard their name yet, so.
Clint Frazier is a good guy. He's been playing up in the league this year with the Yankees.
They haven't traded him.
I've heard they want to trade him to the Cleveland for Trevor Bauer. That could be an interesting name on the market.
Did you hear about that? Cleveland might trade Trevor Bauer independent race. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know why they would do that. That baffles me. I don't get it.
Especially when they're starters. I mean, they don't have as much depth. Mike Clevenger just got back off the IL, and Carlos Carrasco, God bless, he's got his issue. But yeah, it's absolutely surprising that you see the Blue Jays, they're a team that's trying to get rid of their guys to teams, and then here is Cleveland, right back in the AL Central race, and they're trading probably their best guy. I mean, Kluber's probably their best guy, but they're one of their top line starters.
But does Trevor Bauer have arbitration control next year?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to
I don't know. Yeah, I would assume so. I don't think he's been in the league that long. I don't know. He was around for the Jays series back in 2016, but that's only a few years. I don't know. I have no idea if he was around before then. If he wasn't very good. So, I'm not sure.
But yeah, the
Yankees.
Yankees.
He debuted with the D-backs.
The D-backs?
I think he debuted with the D-backs back
he
in 2012. Did. Yeah.
But I feel like the Yankees, personally, they're going to go after Madison Bumgarner, I feel like. That's just a player that I feel like fits them.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. And Matt Boyd's another name.
Tanner Roark is an interesting guy.
Yeah, we know they're going to get someone. They're the Yankees.
What if they shock the world and trade for Noah Syndergaard?
Oh, God.
That'll take quite a hefty return. I'm not who would they trade at in that trade? I mean, that's
Florio?
going to be a package that starts with Clint Frazier, and
you would have to start with that.
Florio.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I mean, are they really that desperate? I don't think so.
They're first in the American League East by, was it quite a bit of margin? I don't know where the Rays are, but haven't looked at standings in a while.
Yeah, I think they have a doubleheader today. I'm not sure if it started yet, but it was in a rain delay. So I think if they sweep this doubleheader, the 2 games, it'll be like an 8-9 game.
Yeah, so it's still delayed, and they have a 6-game lead as of right now.
Yeah, so like if they win these 2 games, you can pretty much tie the knot in the division. 8 games in August. I mean, we saw the Jays come back from that in 2015, but hard to
Good times.
But yeah, good times. Now here we are talking about trading all these guys to the Yankees.
And the worst season in Jays history. Yay.
Right on the doorstep, 100 losses.
Oh, God.
All right, before we start eulogizing this Jay season, should we go into the mailbag, Mo?
First, I wanted to talk about the pitching staff that we can see possibly for the young guys coming up after July 31st, and then maybe after, and then after that, we can talk about how the Jays could possibly get into contention next year by following the mold of the Minnesota Twins and what they did in the offseason. Alright, so the Blue Jays certainly are going to trade some players. We know that. Marcus Stroman is possibly going to be gone. Ken Giles is also going to be gone. So maybe we've seen Jordan Romano, who was earlier in the year. We saw him in the bullpen, who thrived in the bullpen. Maybe we can slate him as a closer. We have players like Ryan Borucki, who will be joining the Major League staff his next go-around, which is going to be exciting to see. And then we have TJ Zork, an interesting prospect for the Blue Jays, who was recently just picked in 2016 first round overall. And currently he's kind of scuffling around with a 4.73 ERA. In about 6 games with the Bison so far. So it's not looking too good for him, but I feel like you said it best. The Jays do not have many options, and I rather see guys like TJ Zork come up than guys like Edwin Jackson. Sean Reed-Foley, I feel like he will get another turn in the Major League staff. It's just bound to happen. He has nice stuff, but just like most guys on the Blue Jays rotation, he just has command issues, and that's what they need to work on. We also have pitchers like Zach Jackson, who's been killing it. We had players like Danny Barnes, who we haven't seen at all this year, who can certainly become. We can certainly see him in the bullpen. Andrew Sopko has been nice. I believe we got him for, was it John Axford?
Oh, was it?
That was Corey Popper.
Yes, I think it was.
But yeah, we know all these players that we have, Sean Morimondo, and maybe even Yenzi Diaz or even Hector Perez from AA can come up and pitch and fill the void of the rotation. But it will be certainly nice to see the Blue Jays have some young, fresh arms. And the Blue Jays have been in deficit this Boston series because of their pitching, and their hitting has been pretty good. We saw the last 2 games. I believe in the first 2 games they combined 18 runs, which is amazing for the Blue Jays batters, and the pitching certainly wasn't that sharp, so it'll be nice to see the Blue Jays bring some exciting young arms from the minor league system, and certainly look to contribute. And what are your thoughts about that, guys?
Well, by the way, Mo, the Andrew Sopko was picked up in the Russell Martin deal this offseason.
Oh, yes.
So that was the whole spiel there. I think it's going to be exciting. Just like last year when they brought up Rowdy Tellez and they brought up, all these young guys, bringing them up last year. It was exciting because you get to see the future of this team. Now we're seeing the future every day, and I think it's going to be really exciting come September when the rosters expand. I think a guy that I have continued to harp on is Zach Jackson, as you mentioned. I think he has some insane scoreless inning streak going down there in AAA right now. He's got at least 12, I think it is, without a run. His ERA is in the mid-2s or something like that. It's a reliever. He's been awesome. I love the looks of Jordan Romano in the very small time we saw him. But in the rotation, I think it's going to be a really interesting one. Look, there's guys in the bullpen. That's fantastic. But when you look at starters who are ready, I don't know if they have them yet. I mean, I see a guy like Thomas Pannone, like we saw today. Sean Reed-Foley, as much as, command has been an issue for him, at the big league level, he hasn't been that bad at all. See, I think he's got an ERA of 3.5, ideally very minimal time. But he's been very good this year for this team. Other than the first outing, I think it was awful. But other than that, he's been pretty good. I think you look at a guy like Ryan Borucki, and I mean, all depending on what happens with Marcus Stroman. But I think a guy like Ryan Barucki is a guy you look at. I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting way of how they do this. You might see some bullpen days. That might be the case as well.
Oh yeah, we actually talked about the opener.
Guys.
Do you want to ask James's thoughts on the opener?
Yeah, we really love the opener, James. But, do you agree with us, or are you sort of on the other end of that?
I mean, I like it. It's a different aspect of the game, and I mean, the Blue Jays have actually done pretty well with it. I mean, they've actually. I think it was one of the games. Oh, was it the game against the Yankees? I think it was when Clayton Richard got hurt, and then that game, the bullpen did everything, and they won 2-1. You know, and I like it personally because it gets everyone involved in the game. It gets everyone moving, and you get to see what you really have. I personally like the opener, especially when the Jays are in the situation right now where they have absolutely no starting pitching. So I like it.
Yeah, the reason why we love it so much, and I mean this is the reason why I love it, and Mo, I think you would agree with this, is that when the opener comes in, he faces the meat of the order, the top 3 hitters at least of the opposition's lineup. So when you bring in the starter in the second inning on, he only has to go through the top of the order twice as opposed to 3 times. So that's a big reason why it's been so effective for teams like Tampa Bay, for example.
With Ryan Stanek and guys like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, but I think we can all agree that if they're going to do an opener, can we not throw Derek Law out there for the first inning to face the meat of the order?
Yeah, he certainly has not looked.
A little more. Okay. Not quite sure who exactly would fit that role. Maybe Daniel Hudson if he's still here, because I guess he's got some heat.
Elvis
like
Luciano?
Schaefer.
Yeah, Schaefer would be fine too. I mean, really, basically anyone that's somewhat competent, which Derek Law hasn't always been.
Maybe even Romano. That'd be interesting.
That would be interesting.
I kind of like Romano.
I like him. Sorry, man. But as the reliever, he's been so good, right? But he started his entire minor league career. So you throw him out there for the 1 inning. I don't know. I like that. I like that feel. Or have him as the next guy. I guess the guy who coming in after the opener. I don't know. I like Jordan Romano in one of those situations. I do agree with you, Mo, on that one.
I kind of like Romano as Mo mentioned at the beginning of this segment. How him in that closer role once Giles gets traded. I think that you saw his arm can throw hard, can work out of the bullpen. I think for the rest of this season, maybe you try him out in that role, and if you can handle the high leverage situation, you might find something there, and he could be a potential high leverage reliever later on, or as you mentioned, possible starter, possible opener. I think the best way to do it is throw him, sort of right in the fire in that high leverage situations for the rest of the year and see if he can sort of sink or swim.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then now you want to transition on, or?
Yeah, let's go right to the mailbag. Let's see what.
Oh yeah, before that, I wanted to talk with just one brief little segment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I believe the Blue Jays can learn a lesson from the Minnesota Twins in their aggressive offseason in the past offseason. So Minnesota was fresh off a 78-84 season and decided that they were going to capitalize on 2/3 of the Major League Baseball, going through rebuilds at the exact same time, which the Blue Jays are currently right now. And then they swooped into the open market and acquired under-the-radar acquisitions such as Marwin Gonzalez, Nelson Cruz, C.J. Cron, Jonathan Scope, Martin Perez, and then Michael Pineda, who was signed, I believe, last year. And now here we are in the midst of July, and the Twins now have a 58-35 record and 96% up, making the playoffs. And their batters have been really nice this year. And all those guys cost the Twins $50 million combined this year, and none of them are on the books after the 2020 season. And they're just short-term deals and short-term assets that they acquired, like former Silver Sluggers like Nelson Cruz, former All-Stars like Marvin Gonzalez, former decent starters like Pineda, and a reclamation project in Martin Perez. And I believe the Blue Jays should go after a new Moneyball idea where they could spend a little bit money because they don't want to waste Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s all his years of arbitration eligibility. And then, since the Twins went 78-84, they decided it was time for them to capitalize on the rebuild. And now we got their best WAR player last year was Kyle Gibson, and he's not very good. And then they had Joe Mauer, who was retiring, and only one full-time player that produced an OPS over 800 So I feel like if the Jays could go into the next year market